Because Christians believe God is one. They don't believe God is three. They really don't. They do not believe God is three. They believe He's one. But He's tripart in this mystical, mysterious way. And they'll never explain it. So they believe in one God. They're not idolaters like that. They believe in one God. And the Jews definitely believe in one God. But within Judaism, there's some anthropomorphism as well. But even within certain Muslim sects, you get anthropomorphism, where you begin to describe God like a human having hands and feet and limbs and things like that, which is haram to do that. You can't do that. I mean, one of the things Imam al-Ghazali says, that the word in Arabic for hand has 17 meanings. Yet, he said, now, which one are you going to choose that God meant when He said Yadullah? In other words, don't interpret it. Just leave it the way it is. But we know it doesn't mean this. With absolute certainty, we know that when God says Yadullah, He is not talking about something like this. We know that. Laysa kamithlihi shay. There's a universal. There's nothing like God. And therefore, it's not like this. Because if I said that, then I'm saying God's like His creation, which is impossible. So when we look at the word God in the Qur'an, Allah is used. Now the Orientalists say it's obvious this is from ilah. Well, that is not obvious to the Muslims. Muslim theologians do not think that Allah is from ilah. And people say, but look, it's same letters and this and that. Well, it's like saying Arizona is from arid zona. Arid zone, dry area. Right? Well, it looks just like it. You're making up an etymology that's not there. So the Muslims prefer just to say Allahu A'lam, where Allah comes from, that word itself. Some say it's al-ilah, and then it got what they call the idgham, where you say Allah. But most of the ulama, including Imam Suyuti, say the word Allah does not come from any other word. It's ghair mushtaq. It's not derived from any. It is ism alam. That's what they call it. It's a proper name. Now, before we can understand really how we understand God, the important thing is how we don't understand God. And that's why he goes into this idea of shirk. But one of the things that he points out before that, and she points out, which is important, is the idea of ilah. In the Qur'an, ilah, which can have a plural, which is called alihat, gods and gods, as well as like goddesses and things. The word ilah is used sometimes positive and sometimes negative. It basically means the object of devotion or worship. And in the Qur'an, it says that there are those who take their own desires as gods beside Allah. And in fact, the Prophet ﷺ, in a hadith that Imam Qurtubi relates, says, أَبْغَضُ إِلَهًا يُعْبَدُ فِي الْأَرْضِ الْهَوَىٰ. The thing that Allah hates, the idol that Allah hates more on the earth that is worshipped, is man's own desire. Which is very interesting because most people don't think of idolatry as being something inside of you. They see it as something outside. You have to have a stone or a wooden form or something, a cow, that you an object of worship. But the Qur'an says, أَرَأَيْتَ الَّذِي اتَّخَذَ إِلَهُهُ هَوَاهُ. Have you not seen the one or have not considered the one who has taken as his God his own desires, his own caprice, his own whims? And that's very interesting because that is the thing that's the most difficult thing to remove. That's the real shirk that becomes difficult. Worshipping our opinions. Because we become assiduously devoted to them. We're not willing to give them up for anything. We'll even die for them. That's a God beside Allah. There are many idolaters amongst Muslims from that category. May Allah protect us from that. But many Muslims don't realize that they fall in that category. The Prophet ﷺ said, مُدْمِنَ الْخَمْرِ كَعَابِدِ وَثَنٍ. Somebody who's addicted to drugs is like a worshiper of an idol. Because you will do anything for your God. There are people that will kill for drugs. Literally kill for drugs. Money. People will kill for money. Their desire. It's just desire. It's not the object of desire. what is forcing somebody to steal? It's inside, it's not outside. The object is called causa occasionalis, if you want a good Latin word, in logic. It is the occasional cause. It's not the deep cause. The deep cause is desire, because another person sees the same object and they don't have any money and they might even want it, but they don't steal it. Why? Because they're in control of their desire. So when the object outside, it's only seen, the delusional state is, oh, well, I had to have it. That's what made me do it. No, it was inside from the beginning. That desire was there, and that was only an exciting cause. It's not the deep cause. The deep cause is tama'. The deep cause is this covetousness for the things of the world. So shirk in the Arabic language means to share, to be a partner, to make someone share, and to give someone a partner, to associate someone with someone else. Sharik is literally, you can call hada shariki fi tijara. This is my partner in commerce. So you're sharing. Musharaka. If we share things, natasharik, we share the food, we share conversation, whatever. So the idea of associating or sharing with God, something which is God's alone. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ said that Allah says in a hadith Qudsi, whoever associates, man ashraka biya, فَأَنَا أَغْنَى شُرَكَائِي عَنِ الشِّرْكِ. I have no need of those partners. So if you associate with Allah partners, you've associated with Allah what He doesn't need. And why do you go into partnerships? Because you need them. In commerce, why do you have partners? Because you need them. So Allah is saying, you're associating with me something that I have no need of, and therefore it's batil. Because there's no purpose. There's no purpose. So, shirk is the reverse side of tawheed. Now, the literal sense of the term shirk may suggest that one has to be conscious of associating others with God in order to be guilty of it. How can I give a partner to someone if I do not know the someone? Well, that's actually true. And that's why the Qur'an says, وَلَا تَجْعَلُوا لِلَّهِ أَنْدَادًا وَأَنْتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ. Do not associate God once you know. And that's why a person who's in that state without knowledge is forgiven. But once it's been explained to you, then after that, you're taken into account for your knowledge. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ, in hidden shirk, he taught us to say, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika an ushrika bika wa ana a'lamu wa astaghfiruka lima la a'lam. Oh Allah, I seek refuge in you from associating with you, and I'm aware of it. And I ask forgiveness for that which I'm not aware of. Because there's subtle things, that what the modern psychologists call the subconscious mind. The Muslims understood this. The Qur'an says, وَلَكِنَّهُمْ لَا يَشْعُرُونَ. They're not conscious of it. They're doing يُخَادِعُونَ اللَّهَ وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَلَا يُخَادِعُونَ إِلَّا أَنفُسَهُمْ. They attempt to deceive God and those who believe, but they only succeed in deceiving themselves. But they're unaware. And that unawareness, the modern Arabic word for the subconscious is la shu'ur, which is exactly the way Allah describes the state of the hypocrite, is that he's not aware. Now the thing about la shu'ur, the subconscious, is there's an understanding in the Islamic tradition that in a truly deep sense you are aware. And it's not an excuse. And that's why the Qur'an says in the next world people will say, لَوْ كُنَّا نَسْمَعُ وَنَعْقِلُ مَا كُنَّا فِي أَصْحَابِ السَّعِيرِ فَاعْتَرَفُوا بِذَنْبِهِمْ. Would we have only listened and comprehended what was being said to us, we wouldn't have ended up in this wretched place. And then Allah says, they finally admit their wrongs. So these defense mechanisms of projection and denial and all these things that human beings do are essentially, according to the Islamic understanding, they're still responsible for them. And the reason for that is because this power that Allah has given us is just too vast and too enormous. And if you don't make use of it, then only you have yourself to blame. All the tools were given you. So it's like somebody who's given a plot of land they have the cow, they have the plow, and they just sit there and just watch it. And then when harvest time comes, everybody else is harvesting, and they're saying, nothing grew. Well, you had the seed, you had the plow, you had the cow. Why didn't you do anything? Oh, you mean I should have done something? Rumi has a poem about the Day of Judgment. He said, on that day, you'll come with your head bowed, and you'll look at the prophets, and you'll say, get me out of this mess, the mud of my life, because I'm mired in the mud of my life. And he said, those kings on that day, those noble prophets will say, you left the plow in the middle of the field, and now you want us to harvest for you? You had all that time, you had all that energy, you had all that. So there's a belief in Islam that Tawheed is from the fitrah of human. It's something we deeply know. It's our inherent nature to know. And that is why children will completely accept the understanding. They'll just completely accept it. They'll accept Tawheed. It makes perfect sense to them. Now, the idea of hidden shirk, the Prophet ﷺ came out, and this is a hadith that Ibn Majah relates, that the Prophet ﷺ came out, and they were talking about the Antichrist. And he said, shall I tell you something that is more frightening to me than the Antichrist? And they said, what? And he said, hidden shirk. The shirkul khafi, which is called riya. In other words, that a man should perform prayer and do it beautifully for the sake of someone who is watching. And Sa'di tells the story about the man in the mosque praying, and he hears the door open, and he decides, I'm going to pray a long prayer because that person will think. And when he finishes his prayer, he looks to see if the person saw him, and it was a dog that came into the mosque. You see, it's all in your head. It's not about what's out there. It's all your perceptions. Now, this is my favorite section here, which is the signs of God. The Qur'an is called Kalam Allah, which is God's speech directed at human beings. And so whatever is said in the Qur'an, we believe is an expression of God Himself. In the same way, when we speak, we express ourselves. So if I'm speaking, I'm expressing myself.